It was a Friday night, and I found myself alone in our dimly lit apartment. My roommate, Anna, had decided to visit her parents for the weekend, leaving me to enjoy some much-needed solitude. Little did I know that this solitary night would spiral into a chilling nightmare. As I settled onto the couch, wrapped in the cozy blanket, the night began uneventfully. I decided to catch up on a TV series and pushed aside the eeriness of the quiet apartment. The occasional creaks and groans of an old building became my background noise, creating a sense of isolation. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I picked it up to find a text from an unknown number. The first message was peculiar, cryptic even. "Alone, aren't we?" it read. I chalked it up to Nora, my prankster friend. I replied with a dismissive, "Who is this?" "It's Nick. Missed our date last week." My stomach twisted. Nick. I remembered him from a few weeks ago. The guy my friend Lisa set me up with. The date had been strange, to say the least. On that night, Nick had an unsettling vibe. He kept staring at me, not in the way people do when they're interested, but more like he was dissecting every inch of my existence. The restaurant, bustling with life, seemed to quiet down when he looked my way. He barely spoke, and when he did, it was in hushed tones about things that made my skin crawl. I did my best to shake off the weirdness, but it lingered in the air. Back to the present, the messages kept coming. "Missed our date, babe," followed by, "You can't just ignore me." At that point, my guess was still on Nora, because she was the only one who knew the details about that terrible date. And also, she was known for her twisted, dark humor. The messages that followed, however, sent shivers down my spine. "Nice blue pajamas. Enjoying your show?" I froze. A photo attachment showed me, sitting in the living room, engrossed in the TV. I scanned the room, paranoia creeping in. How did he get that picture? I felt a shiver down my spine, realizing this wasn't a prank. I decided to confront the situation, texting back, "Nora, enough is enough. Not cool." The reply sent shivers through my body. "This isn't Nora. I see you. I've always been watching." Fear clawed at my chest, and I reached for my phone to dial the police. Before my fingers could touch the screen, a voice whispered behind me, "Hello, beautiful." I turned to see Nick, standing there with a twisted grin, the same unsettling smile from our date. I fumbled for my phone, but before I could dial, he kicked it out of my hand. A glint of metal caught my eye. A knife. "Why, ignoring me?" he hissed, raising the knife. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled backward. "You're crazy," I screamed, my mind racing. How did he find me? Why was he doing this? "I thought we had something special," he murmured, advancing slowly. "You can't just walk away." As he closed in, memories of that strange date flooded back. The way he talked about our connection, how he mentioned things only someone stalking you would know. I had to get away. Summoning every ounce of strength, I bolted toward the door, my heart pounding in my ears. He chased, taunting me with every step. The corridors felt like a maze, each turn amplifying the terror. I had to escape this nightmare. My legs carried me to a neighbor's door, and I pounded on it, praying for rescue. The door opened, and I spilled out the story, the fear, the strange date, and the obsessive texts. The police arrived, and they found him lurking nearby. The night was calm, and I was cozied up on the couch, binge watching my favorite series and enjoying a bowl of mint chocolate chip ice cream. I was alone that night because my husband had ventured off on a weekend hiking trip with his friends. Little did I know that this calm night was about to turn into a nightmare. Suddenly, the unmistakable sound of the front door being unlocked cut through the air. Heart pounding, I vaulted off the couch, hastily wiping ice cream from my hands. My mind raced with the improbable hope that my husband had returned early, though I dismissed it almost instantly. Creeping downstairs, the living room came into view, and my breath caught. Instead of my husband, I found my neighbor in the living room, a woman with whom I had exchanged little more than polite nods and awkward smiles in passing. She was frantically rearranging furniture to barricade the door. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" I stammered, the ice cream now melting in my hand. It turned out she had been caught cheating by her husband, who had now set out to end her life. And before I could fully grasp this crazy situation, I was thrown in without my consent. We heard a heavy pounding on the front door. It was her enraged husband, shouting and banging on the door. But the most terrifying part is that he had a gun with him. "Give her to me," he bellowed, his voice filled with rage, "or I'll break in and kill everyone." With my hands shaking, I dialed 911. The neighbor and I huddled in terror as the husband threats grew louder, each impact on the door intensifying the dread that hung in the air. While we were hiding in my bedroom, waiting for the police to arrive, my neighbor, trembling with guilt, confessed that she had seen us, my husband and I, hide a spare key in an old birdcage in the backyard. Living with my ex-girlfriend was, well, a chapter of its own. We used to share this apartment, small, cozy, the kind that always has that faint smell of microwaved leftovers. She worked night shifts as a nurse, leaving me alone to wrestle with the mundane challenges of insomnia and the occasional lonely TV dinner. One night, as per the usual routine, she left for work, leaving me to my own devices in our dimly lit bedroom. I was never a fan of the dark, but I managed. Just me, the muted glow of the streetlight filtering through the closed blinds, and the low hum of the refrigerator. I settled into bed, hoping to catch a few winks before she returned. It must have been the witching hour when it happened. I was deep into a dreamless sleep when I felt it. A gentle touch, fingers softly weaving through my hair. In my half-conscious state, I figured it was my girlfriend, back early from her shift. I welcomed the warmth, that familiar presence next to me. But something wasn't right. The hair against my face was different. Long, silky strands instead of the short curls I was used to. Panic stirred within me, and my eyes snapped open. There she was, or what I thought was her, lying beside me. The room was dark, but I could sense her presence, feel her warmth. In a clumsy, half-awake stupor, I reached for the bedside table, fingers fumbling for the switch. That's when I heard it. A voice, soft and unmistakably feminine, whispering, "If you turn on the light, you'll die." Chills ran down my spine as if I'd been doused in ice water. I froze, my hand inches away from the salvation of illumination. The voice had an otherworldly quality, chillingly calm. I tried to reason, to dismiss it as a groggy hallucination, but fear held me captive. As if on cue, the atmosphere shifted. Something cold and metallic pressed into my hand. I felt the weight, the unfamiliar sensation of a foreign object being placed in my grip. A chilling certainty settled. The voice meant business. With a surge of terror, I bolted from the bed, stumbling over my own feet. I made a beeline for the living room, heart pounding in my chest. The bedroom door slammed shut behind me, and I fumbled to lock it, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I stood there, alone in the harsh glow of the living room light, gasping for air. The seconds ticked by, each one echoing like a distant drumbeat. I mustered the courage to look back, unlock the bedroom door, and cautiously step inside. But it was empty, no trace of the mysterious woman, no lingering warmth. Even the window, securely closed from the outside, mocked my disbelief. The room held its secrets, refusing to divulge the source of my nocturnal terror. Shaken to my core, I stumbled out into the hallway, screaming for help. Concerned neighbors rushed to my side, their eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and worry. But as we entered the bedroom together, it was a void, a vacuum of normalcy. I had to sleep only with the light on for months after this creepy incident. This incident happened more than 15 years ago, but it always sends chills down my spine whenever I think about. I was still living with my parents. I found myself home alone one evening. My parents had gone to visit my grandparents, just a skip away in the neighboring street. I was sprawled on the living room couch, absorbed in some mind-numbing reality TV show. Little did I know that mundane evening would soon be etched in my memory as the night I'd rather forget. I was in the living room, mindlessly flipping through channels, when I heard something. 3 knocks echoed through the house. It wasn't the kind of knock that's expected when your parents realize they forgot something. It was too deliberate, too heavy. I glanced at the clock. It was too early for them to be back. With caution wrapped around curiosity, I approached the door. As I swung it open, the porch light revealed an empty doorstep. A chill tiptoed down my spine. The dimly lit street showcased an ordinary suburban night, devoid of anything suspicious. My parents' car wasn't even in sight. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a sense of foreboding. I shook off the unease, attributing the knocking to an overactive imagination. Yet, something nagged at me. My brother's room across the hallway caught my attention. His room, untouched since he moved out, was a silent witness to the passage of time. However, the yellow glow of his bedroom light seeped through the slightly ajar door. My heart quickened as I approached. My brother didn't live with us anymore, and no one of us ever go there. The room should be empty. I pushed the door open, and my eyes widened at the sight. The shadow of someone or something was behind the closet. This sent shivers down my spine. The shadowy figure seemed to sway in tandem with my pounding heart. The room felt charged with an unseen presence. Panic clawed at my throat as I bolted to the bathroom, locking myself in. The hollow click of the lock echoed my fear. From the confines of the bathroom, I strained my ears to discern any sound. Footsteps echoed through the silence, muted but unmistakable. The front door groaned, a signal that the intruder had made their way inside. I clutched the edge of the sink, my breath catching in my throat. Time elongated as I waited, cocooned in the bathroom. The minutes felt like hours. I dared not make a sound, not even a whimper. My mind raced through possibilities: a burglar, an unwelcome guest, or perhaps something more sinister. Finally, the distant murmur of my parents' voices drifted through the house. Relief cascaded over me as I cautiously emerged from my sanctuary. The air outside the bathroom felt different, tainted with an undercurrent of intrusion. When my parents returned, I recounted the unsettling events. Together, we ventured into my brother's room, the air heavy with trepidation. To our surprise, nothing material had been taken. The eerie discovery lay in the missing photographs. The window, wide open, offered a chilling explanation. Someone had been here, but who or what nobody knew. When I told my brother about the incident, he told me it's probably his crazy ex-girlfriend. It was just another ordinary evening. I was home alone. My wife had taken our daughters and went to visit her family in another state. The routine was familiar. Open the door for the dog around 9 p.m., let him do his business in the yard, and wait for his swift return. But that night, though, something felt different. As I swung the door ajar for our loyal companion, a chill whispered through the night air. The dog darted into the darkness, his presence momentarily swallowed by the night. Minutes passed, stretching into an unsettling void as the door remained slightly ajar. But this time, the dog didn't return. Curiosity nagged at me, compelling me to step outside and scan the yard for any sign of our furry friend. I called out, but no sign of the dog was there. So I decided to go back home and wait for him there. I found the door wide open. That was strange, because I remember that I closed it behind me before coming out. Rationalizing that it must have been the wind, I dismissed the unease settling in my gut and closed the door securely. Settling into the comforting glow of the television, I tried to lose myself in the mundane stories flickering across the screen. That's when it happened. A sudden weight pressed down on my shoulder, a cold hand sending shivers through my entire being. Instinctively, I jerked around to confront the intruder, only to be met with a grotesque sight. A towering figure loomed over me, a malicious grin stretching beneath a clown mask. In his hands, a baseball bat promised violence. Fear gripped me, and my body moved without conscious thought. I sprinted, adrenaline pumping through my veins, and stumbled into the refuge of the basement, closed the door behind me before the intruder could find me. Fumbling in the dark, I found the switch and plunged the house into blackness. Huddled in the shadows, I dialed 911, my trembling fingers pressing the numbers with urgency. I whispered my address, my words strained with the fear that permeated the air. As the minutes crawled by, the distant wail of sirens grew louder, promising salvation. Yet, when the cops arrived, they combed through the house, finding no trace of the masked intruder. And the creepy part is the fact that he stole nothing he was there to God's knows what. As for the dog, he never come back. I lived with my mother in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Mom had to attend a work event, leaving me alone in the house. Being the creature of company I was, I decided to invite my best friend, Lara, over to spend the night. She promised to be there around 8 p.m., but as the clock ticked towards 11, I grew anxious. This incident happened back in the days when we didn't have smartphones and texting wasn't a thing. So I just waited for her and assumed that maybe something urgent happened in her work. I busied myself with mundane tasks to distract from the growing unease. The doorbell shattered the quiet, making me jump. Relief washed over me, assuming it was Lara finally arriving. Eagerly, I swung the door open, only to be met with a cold gust of wind and the dim glow of the porch light. There stood a man, tall, and in his face was a malicious smile, the type who sent chills down your spine. I hesitated, but politeness and naivety led me to ask if I could help him. He mumbled incoherently, his eyes glinting ominously. Before I could react, he lunged towards me, his intentions clear. Panic surged through my veins as I screamed, a desperate cry for help that pierced the night. Fortunately, my neighbor, Mr. Johnson, a stout man with a kind heart, heard my distress. He emerged from his house, a mix of confusion and concern etched across his face. The sudden appearance of a witness startled the intruder, who fled into the shadows without a trace. Mr. Johnson, my unexpected savior, reassured me and promised to keep an eye on things. Gratitude filled me, but fear lingered, like a ghost refusing to fade away. I locked the door behind me, my trembling hands fumbling with the key. Minutes later, Lara finally arrived, breathless and apologetic. She recounted her tardiness, explaining that a strange man had been following her. So she went to her aunt's house, who happened to live in the same area where she was at the time she was followed. The same man, I wondered. A chill ran down my spine as we pieced together the events of that night.